This is section 3.1, quadratic functions, parabolas. Quadratic function just means the highest power is an x squared, and parabola is just a fancy name for the graph of that function. All right, so we have the graph here, and they want us to find the equation, and they want us to put it in vertex. So with these, they either have an absolute lowest point or an absolute high point. So this has a low point, that's the vertex. It's also referred to as the minimum. And then this is just another point on the graph. All right, so the vertex is at 2, -4. And we have another point, and that's just a random point at 4, 0. Now the vertex, the coordinates are h and k in the vertex form. And the other point, we're just going to use the x, y. What we need to do is find A. A determines how skinny or how wide the parabola is. It's a compression or a stretch. So f of x, this is the same thing as y. All right, so we're going to fill in h and k, x and y, and that way we can figure out what a is. So y is 0. A we don't know. I'm going to put a little multiplication symbol there. X is 4 minus h squared plus k, which is -4. I'm going to pull the calculator up for this. Let me make it a little bit smaller. And I need to find A, and we're just going to make it a little bit easy. We're just going to use numerical solve. So menu, algebra, numerical solve. And you need to put the multiplication symbol in there, otherwise it won't read this properly. And since we're using numerical solve, we're telling it to solve for A, you need to put comma A at the end. And then you hit enter, and A is equal to 1. So now they want it in vertex form. The things that are going to stay, this is going to stay, this is going to stay, and then we need to fill in A. So they'll have the f of x for you. A is 1, and I have x minus h, which is 2 squared. And when you have plus a negative, that becomes a minus, so it's -4. The only thing is, if it's a 1, it's understood to be 1. Like, we don't write 1x, we just write x. So we need to pull that out. If it was something like a 8 or a 7, we would leave it out front. But if it's just a single 1, that's implied if there's nothing there. Let's look at another one. Now this one is still a parabola. It just opens down. So instead of having a low point, it has a vertex. All right, so this is the vertex. So instead of being minimum, it's a maximum. All right, so we have our vertex at 3, 5. That's h and k. Then they give us another point, just a random point on the graph. And again, that's just an XY ordered pair. We're going to use that to find A. Okay. Right. f of x is just another way to write y. Okay. So let's fill in these points. So x is 1 minus h, which is 3 squared, plus k, which is 5. And we want to use numerical solve again to find a. So I plug in h and k, x and y. And again, since I put in a, I'm going to do comma a. If you want to change the a to an x and put comma x, you can. So this time a is -1. The things we're going to keep are the h and the k, and then we're going to put the -1 out front. So it's x minus h, which is 3 squared, plus k, which is a positive 5. Now, if we have like a -1x, we don't put -1x, we put -x. So we're just going to leave that as a negative without the 1. If you had something like -3 out front, you would leave it the 3 in there. And then that's what they want. And that's vertex form. Looking at this, I can tell the vertex is at 3, 5. All right, so there's a spot here for you to make some notes, and I'm going to show you how to find the vertex using your calculator. If need be, when we get to the word problems, I'm going to show you how to do it, writing it out just manually without graphing it, and you can use that way if you prefer. Okay, so let's go over to the calculator. I'm going to make this big. So you want to go to the graphing area, so you can hover over, mouse over the graph, or you can hit the little button. Okay, you may have something in there. If you do, you tab, arrow up, control, then delete. And we're going to put in our new equation. So -5 x squared minus 6x plus 8. And hit enter. And just on a side note, menu, window, zoom, go back to a zoom standard. You may have been adjusting your window. So looking at this, does it open up or down? Okay, there's a high point up there. We just can't quite see it. So let's go to menu, window, zoom. You can manually adjust your window and make Y max higher, or you can zoom out. Okay. And to get, you see it's still in the zoom out mode, you can just hit your escape button. It takes it out of that mode. So I have a high point. So that means I have a maximum. It's menu, analyze graph. And here we're either going to use a minimum or maximum. So we have a maximum. It says lower bound, you're going to use your little mouse pad. So anywhere to the left of it, it could be here, 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 and then hit enter, or you can select in the middle of your little mouse pad. Then use your mouse pad and pull over, and you can see we're at -0.6 and 9.8. So that is our vertex. And then they're going to want you to pick the graph. And this one opens down. So we keep going. The graph on this part is going to be multiple choice. Right, this one has some adjustments to the window. This is X min, X max, Y min, and Y max. So let's go over to the calculator. All right, so I'm going to show you something. As you keep putting these in, you'll get a bunch of numbers popping up. If you hit menu and you're on actions, you can go down to delete all and click yes. It clears everything off of your screen. So they did give us a new window, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust the window manually. You could put the equation in first if you wanted to. Then I'm going to hit tab. I'm on F01. When you hit that clear all, it clears everything out of there. So I'm going to double check, hit enter. And this one has a low point, so that one has a minimum. We're going to go to menu, analyze graph, minimum. So anywhere to the left of that minimum and click. And then you see it switches to upper bound. There we go. And you click. And this is going to be a repeating decimal. I'm going to show you, you may only have 3 decimal places. So while you're in the graphing area, you can hit menu, go to settings. It's probably on float 6. Let's just do float without a number. Okay. And that'll give you more decimal places. It may be set to auto, but to adjust the float setting in the graphing area, you have to do that separate. So menu settings and change it to just float without a number on it. Okay, so let's go back to the main screen. So menu, approximate to a fraction, so -1/6. The other one was 29.08, and the 3 is repeating. -349 over 12. So that's our vertex. And then on the graph, we adjusted our window. So let's look at that. Down and to the left. It's really close. Right, so now we have another one. The x squared term isn't first, which is fine. It doesn't have to be in any particular order. So we're going to do this next one. All right, I'm just going to clear all, or delete all rather. Let's go ahead and change the window first. And these are the settings they gave us. Click OK. Tab, and I'm going to put the equation in. Double check that. Hit enter. And this one has a high point. Okay. So menu, analyze graph, and it has a maximum. Left bounds anywhere to the left. So you click or hit enter and then just use your mouse pad and pull it over. So you see the vertex is at 1, 2. All right, so these two we're going to look at in my math lab. So we flipped over to the homework, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I don't know why it doesn't want to make it bigger. There we go. All right, so the equation we're going to use is 3x squared minus 18x plus 15. Let's look at the graph real quick. We're from a negative 20 to positive 20 and negative 20 to positive 20. So let's go over to the calculator. I'm going to go in here and delete all. And I'm going to adjust my window to what they had. So there's what's negative 20 to positive 20 on the x, and then negative 20 to positive 20 on the y. And now we're going to put in the equation. And hit enter. To graph these, the first thing you need to find is the vertex. And this one has a low point, it has a minimum. Lower bound to the left, click. And so our vertex is at 3, negative 12. And then there's two different things. You can hit Control T. You can use a point, another point in here to graph it. Just make sure it fits on the table. Return the table. All right, so let's go back to the homework. So you're always going to select this right here, the vertical parabola tool. We're never going to use the one next to it. The horizontal we're not. So you click on that and you see up here it says graph the vertex. So I'm going to move my mouse until I get to the vertex, so 3, negative 12. And I don't click anything until I'm actually on 3, negative 12, and you can see that in the yellow box. The second point I like to use, if you look at the equation, there's a 15 without an x on it. That is on, here we go. That is your y-intercept. You see them at 0, 15. That's the second point I like to use. You don't have to use that point. You can use another point from the table. So save, check answer. Now it wants to know what the x-intercepts are. So I want to pop this out. And I see it's crossing at 1 and at 5 on the x-axis. It's not an ordered pair. It's two separate answers. All right. So here's another one. Let's get a good look at the window. So X min would be negative 12, X max would be 8, Y min could be below negative 64, Y max, you could do 0. It doesn't have to be exact, just fairly close. So menu, actions, delete all. And I'm going to adjust my window first. And I did not write. Let me look at that real quick. I didn't write those down. 12, 8. 64, 0. Looks pretty similar to what they have. All right, so let's put the equation in. And it was x squared plus 4x minus 60 and hit enter. And this has an absolute low point. So menu, analyze graph, minimum. Lower bounds to the left of it and click. And go to the right and click. And you see our vertex is at negative 2, negative 64. So click on here, choose a vertical parabola tool, and ask you for the vertex first for -2, -64, which is on the other side. So once I'm exactly at that point, then I click. It crosses, if you look at the equation, you have that -60, so it crosses the y-axis at -60. So 0, -60, save, check answer. All right, let's pop this out. I see it crosses between 8 and 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so -10 and +6 is where it crosses the x-axis. And you could put the 6 first if you want. And that is how you graph. Let's go back to our note guide. And those were left blank, so you could just use whatever they had in there. All right. So these are the word problems. Now, these numbers are really large. I'm going to work them by hand, and then I'm going to explain to you why we want to work these by hand instead of using the calculator. All right. The profit for a product can be described by this function where X is the number of units sold. And you want to maximize the profit. So Y would be the profit. We want to maximize. So that means we need to find the vertex. So how many units must be produced and sold, and what is the maximum possible profit? All right, so the general form is ax squared plus bx plus c. A is in front of your x squared term, b is in front of the x term, and c is just the number that's by itself, but we're not going to use it. The x coordinate of the vertex is -b over 2a. Your a is in front of the x squared is -1. Your b, whatever's in front of x, is the 202. So -202 over 2 times -1. And you can put that straight in your calculator, just like that with a fraction bar. And it'll give you 101 units. Will maximize the profit. So if we have the x, how do we find the corresponding y? We're going to plug in that x value. So let's pull out the calculator, make it a little bit smaller. All right, you go back to the calculate screen. Get to square. So that's 4201. So maximum profit is 4201. So you're going to type it in as two separate answers. As an ordered pair, this is what it looks like. And they're not going to ask you for the ordered pair. This would have to be your Y max. This would have to be your X max. Okay, so it would be really difficult to find the vertex on the calculator unless you're pretty comfortable with it as far as adjusting your window. Okay, and you can also do the other ones by hand to find the vertex like this if you prefer. But I'm just going to do it with the word problems. The annual total revenue for a product is given by this equation, where X is the number of units sold, and we're looking to maximize. That means we're going to find the vertex of the revenue. X is units, Y is revenue. A, whatever's in front of X squared, is -3. Make sure you pull the sign with it. And then B is whatever's in front of X. And that's the 15,000. The x-coordinate of the vertex is minus b over 2a. You put that in your calculator, you're going to get a positive 2,500 units. Again, if we know the x value to find the corresponding y value, we're just going to plug it in. And that is the maximum revenue. So that's 18 million. Imagine trying to find that on your calculator, adjusting your window for that. Your maximum X value would have to be 2,500. Very difficult window to find manually. Right? And that is it for section 3.1.